hello, hello. Come right on in. You're welcome, you're welcome. Come right on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for coming in today. Thank you, thank you. One more day, one more hour, one more minute. Here we are. Welcome back to another hard-hitting, in-depth conversation that we will have here on current events today. Thank you for coming in. If this is your first time, we ask that you would become a subscriber. Hit the like button so that the algorithm will acknowledge us in our discussion. And boy, do we have a good discussion today. We've asked the question. The question for today in today's discussion is, should prostitution be legal? Should it be legal or should it remain outlawed? One of the oldest professions in the world is prostitution. Prostitution has been around for as long as man has been around. Prostitution was started and no taxes was ever collected on it because people just assumed it was a part of our society. And here we find ourselves now in a world where women who get stolen right in front of our faces. Right here in the United States, it's a big business, trillion dollar business where women of all colors, ages, races, groups are sold into sex slaves. They sold for sex. And they're put in these encampments is what I call them until someone breaks them free. Our Secretary of State here did a huge ring bust, a big ring bust, and sent well over 20 peoples within that ring, and that wasn't all of them. That was all he could get, and put them in jail for having sex slave, women being saved into sex slave for sex. That's commodities. And so as we've seen them open up to, a lot of states open up to selling marijuana. We've seen there was a time when we would have never believed for 1 minute gambling casinos would be in our states. Now that's a non-issue. So now I'm asking the question, is it time to legalize prostitution? Make the women pay taxes on it and set up a testing site to where they can constantly be tested free of charge so that we could keep any diseases under control. Is it time for sex to be legalized here in the United States? Is it time for sex to be legalized here in the United States? As I stated, I wanted to give you some of the information that is out there. We know that this is a trillion-dollar business. We know that sex, the buying of sex still continues. Sex is something that will always be around as long as mankind is around. It is a natural desire that God gave us, and it is a part of reprocreation. And so there's nothing we can do to stop individuals, man or woman, from wanting to have sex. And we can argue some people's sex drives or sex desires are higher than others. But certainly we cannot stop humankind, from wanting to have sex. That sex will be around until the day that our Maker takes us up off this earth. As we have stated, sex was the very first job on the face of the earth. And so now we plunge ourselves into this question. Should we make and legalize sex work legal? Legal in every state. They will be required to be tested on a regular basis, and so that we can make sure that there's no venereal diseases, no AIDS, or any of those diseases breaking out in big fashion, in big form. Regulated. They say down in New Mexico, the government owns a sex brothel, and I'm not sure if I believe that or not. Probably do. So as we move forward here today, this is what we're going to be looking at. When we think about so many states that, mainly your southern states, Tennessee, uh, Alabama, Georgia, uh, Mississippi, a lot of states that are depressed, money's hard to come by, the expectancy of life is low. A lot of times in those communities, they put all of the nasty, dirty industrial places where smoke fills your lungs and causes you to die of some type of disease because the air isn't clean. So if we think about legalizing sex in the United States, I mean really legalizing it, because it's not unheard of now. Who would have thought we'd have legalized weed? Who would have thought in a Christian state like where I live that gambling goes on? And it was only after our state started realizing that the buses was leaving here in the droves. I mean in the droves, going to Indiana, going to Illinois, Chicago, the surrounding states. And when our leaders, our government leaders recognized and realized this is big business. This is big business. It was then and only then that they worked to get gambling here in the in Columbus. And so now we have one of the biggest gambling casinos in the world. As a matter of fact, I got my gambling license from Ohio Casino. Thank you. Never worked for them, but they did pay for my gambling license. You have to be licensed if you're going to work in a gambling casino. So shout out to our casino here. But let us get back at the topic at hand. Should we have legalized prostitution here in this state or around the country? It would benefit many of these states who are poor strapped. It would generate millions and millions of dollars. But the question is even if we allow those states to have legalized prostitution, and it is under regulations and so forth as to control and to limit the amount of disease that could be transferred, would that be a good thing to do? We know that in New Mexico, there is said to be a brothel that the government, the United States, owns and runs and have been for many, many years. And I might add, it's turning a buck, meaning it's not going belly up. Would we be better off if we just collect taxes, let the women work, and police this? Is it high time that we stop pretending like we're so holier than thou that sex work should not be legalized? It certainly would bring out all of the illegal sex work that is going on. It's $1 trillion business, people. Sex work is $1 trillion business. Yes, we have buses here. We have buses in other states. But it's only a drop in the bucket, because when you're talking trillions of dollars, unless every country looks at this as a clarion call, it would be virtually impossible to stop it. So we have some that say sex work is no different than any other work that's going on anyway. If the governments legalize it, they will have control over it. They will be able to set the parameters, and they will keep women safe, because a lot of times in these sex work operations, the women are not safe. A lot of them are made to do this. They're threatened. We'll kill your family. We'll kill your children. You will never get out of this alive. We'll kill you, your family, and your children. And so some women are forced to to live in this world, to live in it. And sadly, most of the time they get a stipend of the money that they make. Isn't that sad? So it is high time that we take a look as a peoples as to whether we will continue to let this go on, in perpetuity. One of the good qualities that is said is that the government will be able to collect taxes, and that you'll be able to regulate it, and it will be from behind the wall, just as with weed now. It's regulated. It's out in the open. They have to pay taxes and so forth. And the weed producers are happy to pay the taxes because they make so much money. And I think the same would be with sex work. That if you legalize it and put rules in there and guidelines in there, the people would be happy to pay it. They would no longer have to hide, and it would be regulated. It would be safe. And the states could take that money and do great things for the community. So it's a win-win when we look at it from that walk. Should sex work be legal? Absolutely it should be legal. You know, I argue it would make the women that would be in this industry so much safer, because they would no longer have to hide. They could be out in the open. And their security and their safety would be intact. They wouldn't have to live in an underworld, so to speak. And they would also get paid for it. And the government, the city, and the state could collect those taxes that we so greatly need. Especially some of the poorer states like Alabama and Mississippi, Tennessee. They're cash strapped. They need that money. And so should we go to our leaders and say it is time to legalize prostitution? It is time to do it. Let's stop fooling ourselves and thinking that if we just keep trying to keep it from surfacing to the top, that everything will be okay. It's not been okay. For as long as I can remember, all we've done is make bus, and that's it. We'll make a bus, and don't get me wrong, some of the buses are really big. This one that they did last time, it was huge, it was big, and my hat's off to the police. My hat's off to the FBI, the CIA. My hat's off to you, because that's hard work, it's gruesome work, and it takes a long time to bust these here sex crime organizations. It takes a long time, folks. So my hat's off to them. That's a lot of hard, gruesome work. Should we open up brothels? Should brothels be opened up from state to state? The state collect that money, put in the regulations to make sure that these women are being tested as to not be spreading disease all over the place. So these are some of the things that we should be talking about. And I'm afraid at some point somebody is going to bring up and say we've got to go ahead and legalize this for the safety of those women and for the sake of the money, and quit letting these pimps and these outlaw organizations collect trillions of dollars, and we not see not one penny of it. And then we have a lot of murders that happens within this industry. It's not free and clear. It has a lot of mysterious murders. And it's probably some of these women trying to get up out of that. And the people that have them tied down says, not over my dead body. And so that's why we sometimes will have them pop up dead. It's because they try to break free of that world. And it is a world where people are willing to pay money. Men, women, they're willing to pay money. Don't get it confused. There are men forced to sell their bodies just as women are. It's a big business, people. The sex industry makes trillions of dollars. And a lot of that is not taxed. And it's high time that we think about taxing that money so that these states can do and help their peoples. It's high time that we take a look at that. If they do legalize it, should one be able to sell sex right out of their homes, or should there be special places set aside where sexual work can only be done in certain areas? These are questions we will have to ask, and I'm afraid at some point we're gonna ask. Should sex workers be made to test? I think I've mentioned that. I firmly believe that should be, they should have to test, and as to make sure that they're not spreading disease all over creation. So we bring you these questions, we bring you these topics to make you think, to put it to you, because I don't believe it will be very much longer that this will become an issue that is put on the ballot, and that once and for all we will get answers. And somewhere, sometime, someone is going to get enough signatures to put this on the ballot. And I predict if it gets on the ballot, it will pass. It will pass, and it will be high time that it pass. So many of our loved ones have been killed and never to be seen. And even to this day, there are loved ones who don't know where their girls are, even the boys are. And they're somewhere out here in a sex work ring. They could be in another state, they could be in another country, but we don't know where they are, we don't know where they're at, we don't know of their well-being. It's like they just vanished one day, but we know they're out here somewhere working in a sex ring. And so it is time for our law officials to take a look at this and to decide once and for all, will we allow sex work to be regulated work? Will we allow it to be as we have allowed marijuana to be sold now? And the states are reaping the benefits with that money. Ask yourself, ask your parishioners, ask your neighbor, ask your congressman, your senator, to look at making sex work legalized. Until the next time, until we bring you another hard-hitting story, something that you can news you can use, take care of yourselves and each other.